a journey into the dark tricks of the human mind. Imagine stepping into a room with no windows. The air is still. A dim light flickers above, casting shadows that dance with every breath you take. You hear only the ticking of a distant clock, and somewhere, a whisper brushes against your ear, guiding your thoughts without you even knowing. No hypnosis, no magic, just psychology. Simple, invisible, terrifying. Have you ever looked back on a decision and thought, why did I do that? Was that really my choice? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe a compliment, a fleeting glance, or a casual gesture nudged you toward a path that wasn't truly yours. That's what dark psychology tricks do. They're not illusions. They're science, researched, tested, and quietly woven into everyday life. We often think of psychology as a tool for healing, for understanding ourselves, but dig deeper, and you'll find something else. A treasure chest of techniques designed to persuade, influence, and even manipulate. The ones who master them, marketers, politicians, even con artists, can make you buy what you don't need, believe what you once questioned, and sign papers you never meant to touch. And the scariest part? They can do it without saying a word. But why learn about these tricks? To protect yourself? Or to use them? Maybe both, but that's for you to decide. The first story, a pen, a favor, and a nearly signed future. When I was 19, I worked part-time at a small cafe in the heart of the city. One slow afternoon, a sharply dressed man walked in. He smiled, but his eyes were cold. He ordered coffee, then turned to me and said, "Hey, I forgot my pen. Can I borrow yours to fill out this form?" I handed it over without a second thought. He thanked me profusely, then added, almost casually, "Actually, could you do me one more favor? Could you sign this sponsorship form for me? It's nothing serious, just your signature." I hesitated, but he smiled warmly, his voice gentle, like I was the kindest person he'd ever met. "I trust you. No one else wants to help. Please?" I almost signed. Almost. Just in time. My manager came back and pulled me away. I later found out the man was a professional scammer, exploiting a principle known in psychology as commitment and consistency. If someone helps you once, they're more likely to help again, just to stay consistent with their self-image. That day changed everything. I began studying psychology, not to trick others, but to avoid being tricked. And what I found was shocking. Most of our choices, shopping, dating, voting, even loving and hating, are subtly shaped by forces we don't see. So what exactly are dark psychology tricks? They aren't magic. They're psychological techniques, sometimes ridiculously simple, built on principles like the halo effect, scarcity, authority, social pressure, guilt, and more. Used at the right time, on the right person, they can make even the smartest mind act against its own logic. A perfectly timed smile can unlock more doors than 1,000 words. A sorrowful glance can awaken compassion where there was once refusal. Even silence, when stretched long enough, can make people confess things they swore they'd never say. These techniques have been used since ancient times, in courts, in wars, in trade, and now, in modern marketing, social media, and your next Tinder date. 1. The power of guilt. The weight of a simple, please. It was a rainy evening, and I was rushing home from work, umbrella half broken, shoes soaked. Just before I reached the subway entrance, a woman in her 30s stopped me. Her voice was soft, almost trembling. "Excuse me, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I lost my wallet. I don't need much, just enough for a train ticket. Please." I froze. Something about her voice hit me hard. She looked desperate, but not dirty. Sad, but not dangerous. I handed her some cash without thinking. 5 minutes later, I saw her again. Same spot, same story, new stranger, another victim. What made me give so easily? It wasn't the story, it was guilt. Guilt is one of the oldest emotional levers in psychology. It's what compels us to give even when we're suspicious. It's why charities show starving children. Why commercials say, "Don't you care?" And why manipulators often play the victim first. The trick is subtle. They don't demand. They plead. They frame you as the only one who can help. And if you refuse, you're not just saying no, you're rejecting humanity itself. The moment you feel bad for not helping, they've won. And the guilt doesn't end there. Often, once someone gets you to help once, they escalate. That's where compliance through guilt kicks in. They build emotional debt, and every favor you do becomes another link in their invisible chain. So next time someone says, "Please, just this one thing," stop and ask, is this really about helping them? Or is it about avoiding the guilt of saying no? 2. Social proof. The crowd that lies. I was once lost in a foreign city, no signal, no map, just winding streets and unfamiliar signs. As I stood on a busy corner, wondering which way to turn, a crowd started gathering near a small cafe. People were lining up, dozens of them. Curious, I approached someone and asked what was going on. They shrugged. "I don't know. I just saw people lining up. So I joined." Turns out, the cafe was closed. That's social proof. One of the simplest, most deceptive forces in psychology. We're wired to trust the crowd. It's a survival instinct. In nature, following the herd meant safety. But in modern life, it means vulnerability. Marketers use fake reviews, rented lines, even laugh tracks on TV shows, just to trick your brain into thinking, if everyone else is doing it, it must be right. Think about it. How many times have you bought something just because it had 5 stars and 5.000 reviews? Ever clicked on a viral post without even knowing what it was? That's social proof at work. And the dark twist? It's easy to fake. So next time you see a trend, a viral product, or a crowded restaurant, ask yourself, is this popular because it's good? Or is it good because it's popular? 3. Scarcity. When almost sold out isn't an accident. I was shopping online for concert tickets when a red banner flashed across the screen. Only 2 tickets left at this price. My heart skipped. I wasn't even sure I wanted to go. But suddenly, it felt urgent, essential. Within minutes, I bought them. Later, I checked back. Same banner. Same, only 2 left. That's the illusion of scarcity. And it works because our brains equate rarity with value. It's why luxury brands release limited editions. Why websites show fake countdowns. Why salespeople whisper, "There's only one in stock." Scarcity triggers panic. It shuts down logic. It says, decide now, or regret it forever. In truth, most of these limits are artificial. A timer resets. Sold out becomes magically restocked. But by then, you've already made the purchase. Scarcity is a mirror. It doesn't show what's there. It reflects what you fear losing. So next time you feel rushed to buy, pause and ask, is this thing really rare? Or is it just my fear of missing out that's rare? 4. Authority. The uniform that silences doubt. In 1961, psychologist Stanley Milgram conducted a disturbing experiment. Volunteers were told to deliver electric shocks to another person, an unseen learner, whenever they gave a wrong answer. The shocks weren't real, but the volunteers didn't know that. What mattered was who gave the orders. A man in a white lab coat stood beside them, calm, professional, and expert. And because he said, "Please continue," most people obeyed, even when they thought they were causing serious harm. That's the terrifying power of authority. We're trained from childhood to respect uniforms, titles, badges. A doctor says something, and we rarely question it. A person in a suit demands something, and we assume they're right. Con artists know this. So do shady salesmen and corrupt officials. They use symbols of power to bypass your skepticism. It doesn't take much. A clipboard, a confident tone, a logo on a jacket. Suddenly, they're not just a person, they're a figure of authority. And your inner voice? It goes quiet. So next time someone tells you what to do, and they look the part, pause and ask, do they truly deserve my trust? Or am I just reacting to the costume? 5. The halo effect. When beauty equals truth. I once interviewed a man for a job. He walked in with a confident stride, wore a perfectly tailored suit, and smiled like he had known me forever. Before he even spoke, I felt a strange trust, like he was already qualified. When he answered my questions, I nodded along, convinced by his charm. But weeks later, after we hired him, the truth unfolded. He was late, careless, and not half as competent as he seemed. That's the halo effect. It's a cognitive bias where we let one positive trait, like attractiveness, charisma, or a nice voice, spill over into how we judge everything else about a person. A good-looking speaker must be smart. A well-dressed stranger must be trustworthy. A kind voice must mean a kind heart. Marketers use this constantly. Ever wonder why commercials feature celebrities selling things they know nothing about? Or why influencers get paid to recommend products they barely use? Because if we like someone, we're more likely to believe them, even when we shouldn't. The danger? It clouds judgment. We stop thinking critically. We stop asking questions. So next time someone seems too perfect, pause and wonder, do I trust them, or just their smile? 6. Guilt tripping. The art of emotional debt. There was a time when a friend asked me to lend him money. Not much, but enough to make me hesitate. I said I'd think about it. His response? Wow, I just didn't expect you to be like this. After all I've done for you. Suddenly, it wasn't about money. It was about morality, about loyalty, about guilt. I lent him the money, and I never saw it again. This is the emotional minefield of guilt tripping, a tactic used to control not through logic, but through shame. People who employ it don't argue their case. They make you feel bad for having a boundary, for saying no, for being human. It's common in toxic relationships, manipulative parenting, even customer service tactics. You don't care about me. I guess I just don't matter. I wouldn't have asked if I weren't desperate. When you hear those lines, it's no longer about what's fair. It's about making you feel like the bad guy. But guilt doesn't always mean you did something wrong. Sometimes, it just means someone knows how to push your buttons. So next time someone makes you feel guilty, ask yourself, am I being unfair? Or am I just being emotionally cornered? 7. Silence. The weapon no one notices. I once sat in a room with a seasoned negotiator. He asked me to name my price for a service. I gave a number and waited. He said nothing. Seconds passed, then a minute. The silence stretched so long. I started talking again, lowering the price, offering more, all just to fill the void. He won. That's the power of silence. In a world addicted to noise, silence is unsettling, awkward, heavy, and that's exactly what makes it powerful. Skilled manipulators use it like a scalpel. After making a request, they don't justify, they don't plead, they just wait, letting your discomfort do the work. Silence creates tension, and tension seeks release. So we confess, we give in, we over-explain. But silence isn't just a passive trick, it's an active force. In interrogations, interviews, sales, and arguments, silence is often the moment when people reveal the most, because they can't stand the quiet. The next time someone goes quiet after making a request, and you feel the urge to speak, pause. Ask yourself, am I speaking or surrendering? 8. Anchoring. The first number rules them all. A friend once bragged he'd bought a vintage jacket for only $150. Original price was $600, he said. I nodded, impressed, until I checked the label later and saw the store's tag, $180. He hadn't saved $450. He'd paid $150 for a $180 jacket and felt victorious. Why? Because the first number he saw, $600, became the anchor. Our brains cling to initial information. and everything after is judged relative to it. Negotiators open high so your counter offer drifts upward. Retailers print an inflated was price next to the sale tag. Even in relationships, someone might declare, "I'm a total mess," so that any mildly decent behavior later feels extraordinary. Anchoring doesn't change reality, it reframes perception. So the next time a deal seems irresistible, ask, is this price fair, or am I just comparing it to an illusion? 9. The foot in the door, small yes, big control. At a charity booth, a volunteer asked me to sign a petition for cleaner parks. Simple, harmless. I signed. Thank you. Would you also like to donate a few dollars to help us plant trees? I hesitated, but the pen was still warm in my hand from the signature. I donated. Weeks later came an email. "We're so grateful. Could you commit to a monthly pledge?" The slope was slippery and perfectly designed. This is the foot in the door technique. Get a tiny commitment first, anything that makes you say, yes. That single yes rewrites your self-image. I'm the kind of person who supports this cause. Refusing bigger requests later feels inconsistent, even hypocritical. Cold recruiters start with a friendly survey. Sales funnels begin with free trials. Manipulative partners ask for small favors, then larger sacrifices. Before offering your first yes, pause and ask, am I okay with where this path might lead? 10. Love bombing. Affection is ammunition. She texted me good morning before sunrise and sweet dreams past midnight. Compliments flooded in. You're brilliant. You're different. No one understands me like you do. After a week, I felt drunk on validation. Then came the withdrawal. Messages slowed, warmth cooled, and I found myself chasing the very attention that had once chased me. Only when I complied with her wishes, cancel plans, share secrets, change priorities, did the affection return. Briefly, like the sun between storm clouds. That cycle is love bombing, overwhelming someone with praise, gifts, and constant contact to create euphoria and dependence. When the tap shuts off, the sudden emptiness pushes the victim to do almost anything to feel loved again. It's common in toxic romances, high-pressure sales teams, even extremist groups recruiting lonely souls. So when someone showers you with intense adoration too soon, breathe and wonder, is this real connection or strategic chemistry? 11. Triangulation. Turning allies into rivals. At a previous job, my manager praised me one day. "You're my top performer. Unlike Peter, he keeps slipping." Later, he told Peter, "You're the reliable one. I wish the others had your focus." We discovered the mismatch over lunch. The tension that had been growing between us evaporated and reformed into distrust of our boss. He'd been triangulating, feeding each of us selective praise and criticism to keep us competing for approval. When teammates see each other as threats, the manipulator stands atop a divided kingdom. Triangulation appears in toxic families. Why can't you be more like your sister? Friendships, I only told you this. Don't repeat it. And romantic entanglements, my ex still wants me. You'd better try harder. Division keeps power centralized. So when someone positions you against another, pause and ask, are they sharing information or sowing rivalry for control? 12. The illusion of choice. 3 doors. Same destination. A street magician offered a game. Pick one of 3 cups to find the coin. No matter which I chose, he'd lift an empty cup, then give me a last chance to switch. I lost every time. The coin was never under any cup. He palmed it from the start. Manipulators often present options that aren't really options, a negotiation with preset outcomes, a survey with limited answers, a contract whose flexible plans all funnel to the same fee. By letting you feel autonomous, they prevent you from noticing the real constraint. Next time someone says, "It's totally up to you, A or B," ask, "Who designed these doors? And what's behind all of them? 13. Gaslighting. Editing your reality. I had a roommate who'd move my keys, then shrug when I panicked. You're so forgetful lately. Lights left on? You always do that. Rent money missing? You must have misplaced it. Months in, I doubted my own memory. Only after other friends confirmed his pattern did I realize I wasn't losing it, I was being gaslit. Gaslighting erodes trust in your senses by denying facts, rewriting events, and sprinkling just enough truth to make you question yourself. Once self-doubt blooms, the manipulator becomes the sole, reliable narrator. When someone dismisses solid evidence with, "You imagined it," breathe and ask, "Is my recollection flawed, or is my reality being rewritten?" 14. The scarcity of time. Countdown to compliance. During an online course launch, a banner screamed, "Offer ends in 15 minutes." My cursor hovered over "Buy now." 10 minutes later, after frantic inner debate, I purchased. The next morning, the same timer greeted me, 15 minutes again. This is time scarcity, a subtype of scarcity that weaponizes deadlines. Limited time sales, act now, phone deals, expiring coupons. The ticking clock hijacks our fear of loss, overriding patience and research. Before rushing because a timer blinks, ask, is the clock real, or just a prop designed to outrun my better judgment? 15. The authority of data. Numbers that lie. I once saw an ad. Clinically proven, 97% of users saw results. Impressive, until I read the fine print. Sample size equals 30. Self-reported, study funded by the brand. We're living in an age where statistics wear the crown of truth. Graphs, percentages. Science says, they silence dissent even when the methodology is rotten. Politicians cherry-pick figures. Influencers tout dubious lab tests. Wellness gurus cite unpublished Harvard studies. Numbers feel objective, but they can be framed, cropped, or fabricated. So when confronted with authoritative data, pause and ask, do these numbers illuminate or merely intimidate me into agreement? 16. The empty chair that changed everything. There was once a psychological experiment so simple, yet so haunting, that it left lasting echoes in everyone who heard about it. In a quiet room, a participant was asked to take a seat and fill out a form. In front of them, there were two chairs, one already occupied by a friendly-looking stranger, an actor, and the other one empty. Then, the researcher entered and asked the participant to wait just a moment. What the participant didn't know was that this entire scene was carefully staged to observe one thing. Would they sit in the empty chair? Or somewhere else? Surprisingly, the vast majority chose the seat directly next to the stranger. Why? Because humans are wired to seek connection. Even unconsciously, the presence of someone else, even a silent stranger, creates a magnetic pull. But here's the darker layer. This principle is used constantly in marketing, crowd control, and persuasion. In political rallies, staff are planted in strategic spots to start applause, encouraging the real audience to follow. In restaurants, people are seated closer to windows to give the illusion of popularity, so others are drawn in. In interrogation rooms, simply placing an observer in the corner can pressure someone into confession. The empty chair becomes more than furniture. It becomes a symbol of where you're expected to be. We think we choose where we sit, but often, that choice was designed long before we walked into the room. 17. The clock that made them confess. In a dimly lit room, an old clock ticked loudly on the wall. It was nothing special, just an ordinary clock. Yet, it became the centerpiece of one of the most unnerving psychological manipulations ever crafted. During police interrogations, time can be a weapon. Officers discovered that by placing a loud, visible clock in the room, they could accelerate confessions. The ticking sound subtly heightened the suspect's sense of urgency and anxiety. Every second that passed was a reminder that time was running out, that decisions needed to be made. And quickly. Some would even feel as if they were aging, trapped in a moment that demanded resolution. When the mind is under pressure, especially when time feels compressed, people become desperate to escape discomfort. They rush decisions, admit guilt to crimes they didn't commit, agree to deals they would otherwise refuse, all because of a simple, constant reminder. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Marketers use the same principle in flash sales. A countdown clock blinks urgently. Only 2 hours left, pushing you to buy. It's not a real scarcity, it's a pressure trap, designed to make you act now and think later. That old clock on the wall? It isn't counting time. It's counting how close you are to surrendering. 18. The shattered plate and the silent guilt. It happened at a family dinner one winter night. Laughter filled the house, the clinking of glasses, the smell of roasted meat in the air. And then, crash, a plate shattered on the floor. Silence fell. Everyone turned to look at the youngest child, standing frozen, wide-eyed. But before he could utter a word, his mother said softly, "It's okay. We all make mistakes." No shouting, no blame, just a gentle, forgiving voice. And yet, the boy burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably, apologizing over and over. Why? Because sometimes, the absence of anger is more powerful than anger itself. It creates an emotional vacuum that guilt rushes to fill. This is called the reverse guilt trap. When someone expects punishment but receives kindness instead, they feel an overwhelming need to correct the imbalance themselves. It's why an unexpectedly kind boss gets more loyalty than a strict one. Why a forgiving lover lingers longer in someone's heart than a jealous one. Con artists, manipulators, and master negotiators know how to use this. When someone makes a mistake, they don't pounce. They stay silent or offer unexpected forgiveness. And in return, people offer favors, confessions, even secrets, desperate to make things right. The next time someone forgives you too easily, pause. Ask yourself, are they being kind? Or are they opening the door for you to walk yourself into a trap? 19. The vanishing wallet and the power of distraction. It was a bustling afternoon at the marketplace. Crowds pushed past each other. Colors blurred together, and the chatter of bargaining filled the air. Somewhere in the chaos, a man bumped into me, apologized profusely, and hurried away. Only later did I realize my wallet was gone. This wasn't just a simple pickpocketing. It was a masterclass in psychological misdirection. When he bumped into me, he didn't just distract my body, he distracted my mind. His exaggerated apology, his friendly smile, the emotional overload, all carefully designed to freeze my critical thinking for a few crucial seconds. In psychology, this is called the cognitive overload technique. When too much sensory input floods the brain at once, it momentarily paralyzes decision-making. Our attention, like a flashlight, can only shine on a limited area. If you flood someone's senses with noise, emotion, or movement, you can slip right under that beam, unnoticed. Scammers aren't the only ones who use this. Magicians do it on stage. Marketers do it in flashy ads. Politicians do it during heated debates. Next time you feel overwhelmed by too much happening at once, step back. Because while your mind is busy chasing distractions, someone else might be quietly steering your next move. 20. The silent agreement. How nods create consent. One rainy evening, I sat in a cramped diner, nursing a cup of bitter coffee. Across from me, a salesman pitched a new insurance plan. I wasn't interested, but somehow, by the end of the conversation, I found myself nodding along and dangerously close to signing the papers. What happened? He nodded while he talked. Slowly, rhythmically, almost hypnotically. And without realizing it, I mirrored him. My brain, eager to connect, interpreted the act of nodding as agreement. The words hardly mattered. The physical gesture already planted the seed of consent. This is called the nodding technique. In dark psychology, subtle cues like head movements can trigger automatic responses in others. It exploits our deep, unconscious need for social harmony. When someone nods at us, especially in a rhythmic, confident way, we instinctively want to match that behavior to maintain connection, even if it means agreeing to something we might normally question. Lawyers use this in courtrooms. Teachers use it in classrooms. Manipulators use it when they want something without asking too directly. The next time you find yourself nodding along, pause. Ask yourself, is this truly my agreement, or just my mind following a silent lead?